Dustin Puryear. What a great conversation with Dustin. Dustin is similar to myself. Started as a developer, a code developer, a programmer, whatever you'd like to call it. Eventually created a managed service provider company, a company that does outsource IT to small to medium-sized businesses. He saw a need internally with help desk, with escalating tickets, service manager assigning tickets, started creating an internal solution to help that, to automate that, eventually through AI. I'm not sure if you've ever heard the term mixed intelligence, meaning part AI and part human. But he created this internal solution. He made another company, Giant Rocket Ship, and now he has a solution for MSPs that use a ConnectWise or Autotask that does this automation, assigning tickets. It's in 3 different areas and deciding where it should go, deciding its priority, etc. Really cool tool. Great conversation. We opened the conversation up with pickleball, one of his passions. I enjoy playing it too. Why it's there, why it's needed, why, here in the States, we have very serious issue with exercise and health. But it's a great conversation with Dustin. He is part of the PitchIT program, the ConnectWise PitchIT program, which is a very cool incubator program at ConnectWise. Really love talking to Dustin. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic. I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business? And it lasted over 25 years. Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. So I will be having conversations with a lot of the coaches and the finalists from 2023 and, just kind of talking about them a little bit and their solution in some future podcasts. We want to make kind of an introduction to that as well.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, like I said, as the years progress, more people are getting involved, and then back to these vendors looking for a way to create a name for themselves with consistency. They need people like you, which is why I'm so thrilled that you're willing to work with me and work with us on this. So you're going to be you've graciously accepted to host these, and I appreciate that. Where you'll interview all our contestants. You're also going to interview last year's head coaches, last year's judges, last year's finalists. So you're doing all that. And I think it's important, for if you're a vendor and you're watching these, take note of this and how you get more involved. Watch the program. Watch what these men and women are all doing with us, because they're doing a lot. That's how you grow your business. If you're an MSP, watch these things. Get to know who people are and then inquire, because you're all looking to have stack alignment and you're all looking for credible and reputable businesses. We're vetting them out for you. We're putting them on display for you. Watch them, ask questions, find out, do your due diligence. Don't wait until IT Nation Connect to see you like at a booth and then buy 5 or 6 different technologies that you don't need.
So 2024 PitchIT, ConnectWise PitchIT. What's new and exciting about it?
Oh my Lord. So for those that have not followed any of this, I took over the PitchIT program 2 years ago, and we've had such great success, with like really great success. Went from, it's become one of the most predominant programs in the space now. Matter of fact, I was doing some research the other day, and about 5 or 6 other pitching things have spun off from mine and from ConnectWise PitchIT with other people that are running it. So it's great to see, because I think it's the thing about Pitch It is it's all about innovation. It's all about being daring and willing to do things, right? I mean, as an entrepreneur, it's a scary situation. You have to be ignorantly optimistic, and you have to be willing to maybe fail a lot more than you'll succeed, and you have to have very thick skin. But you
Mm.
always have to be innovative and creative. So it's nice to see that this has spun off into other groups that have started doing it, because I think the hardest challenge for most startup vendors is getting their name out there, right? Getting people to know that they exist. And the reality of it is, you can't just be there one time. You have to show consistency. You have to be in there for the long haul,
Mm.
for the partners to really be able for you to establish credibility, right? Because there's been plenty of fly by night businesses that have came out big and gone in 6 months. And for partners, their whole business is built around these vendors, these products. So they're making lifelong business decisions off of these.
Mm.
So it's great, it's exciting, but back to the program itself, it's jumped leaps and bounds. It went from being just a competition where they picked a few people, a few really good product companies to pitch at live at IT Nation Connect, to where we turn into an accelerated incubator program it's a season. It's literally a competitive season now at this point.
Mm.
And went from 5 or 7 or maybe even 10 vendors that are involved until they narrowed down to 3, to 2 years ago was 18. Last year was 26.
Wow.
And we had way more applications than that. That was just the ones that we thought were the best fit.
Hmm.
So yeah, we're getting ready to put out the press release in a couple of days, because then the application process will start February 1st. So I recommend anybody from around the entire globe to apply. We've had over just last year alone 6 different countries represented, between the U.S., Canada, to Israel, to Australia, to New Zealand, to the UK. They all involved in this competition.
Much more than that. Dustin Puryear, thank you so much for your time today. Very excited to talk to you. What is it about pickleball that attracts you?
Pickleball, great question. I played sports through K through 12, and then I'm tall, 6'3", so I played pickup through my 20s. But at some point, man, I just started breaking down, and I kind of just became a gym bro, but didn't do sports.
Mm.
And I just couldn't find anything that I really enjoyed. And then I kept watching people play pickleball, and I was like, this is ridiculous. And then one day I played it, and it's funny because they have Instagram videos on this, and
Sure.
like people get addicted. It's a fantastic
It
game,
is. It is.
so accessible. You can have so many more carts than tennis, which is also a great game. I
Right.
just think it's a great game.
And you get a nice sweat.
Oh, well, I'm in South Louisiana, so it'll get around 96, 98 degrees,
Yeah.
full humidity, and we get disgusting. It's foul what it looks like out there.
Yeah. So you can only play in the morning and the evening, obviously.
Yeah, you can't play during lunchtime during the summer for sure.
Right.
It's really bad. And actually, I just ordered a huge igloo, like your high school football team igloo.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna start bringing that so that we can all kind of not die. Because you bring a little water bottle, and it's just never enough.
It's never enough. Yeah. Yeah. So do you have a league that you play? You just show up? That's another, it's such a nice community. You can just show up, put your paddle up on the fence, and you're in.
That's exactly. Well, you must play, huh? Or you play
Yeah.
tennis?
Both.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so you know how it works. So, well, I have a friend whose neighborhood has some pickleball courts, and so we just go. And then where I'm at, they have a really fantastic recreation, like we call it Breck, where they do all the parks, and they have a couple of really nice courts around town. And you just show up, put your paddle in the next set, and just jump in. Well, in all fairness, they do have a usage fee. You put in $1 every day you
Ah.
show up. So the taxes, man, it's brutal. But otherwise we just show up.
Yeah, it's a nice way to get a nice little sweat. It's a great community. Usually play 2 games, you sit and you play again. I mean, good hour and a half, and I've got my fill.
Absolutely. I even had to learn to buy the correct shoes for the sport.
Ah,
I
yeah.
was wearing running shoes.
No, those are thick heels. Yeah,
Oh, it was horrible. I had
yeah,
very little stability.
right.
And then I tried my gym shoes, because gym shoes have hard soles, very
Sure.
thin for the balance. But that didn't work. And finally, I said, should I get tennis shoes? And I bought tennis shoes, and lo and behold, it's the correct shoe
Who would have
to
thought?
play the sport.
Yeah. Now the big knock on it, of course, is that all the neighborhoods don't like it because of the knocking sound.
Well, they can. They can write me a sternly worded letter. Well, it's the thing. It's just like, there was a little bit of a weird uproar when Harry Potter came out, and I was always my thinking was it has kids reading again. This is kind of dates me, but I loved the fact that it came out
Yeah,
because
it's true.
now everybody became a reader again.
Mm.
And what I like about pickleball is everybody's an outdoor sports person again.
Mm.
Like I see people out there playing that otherwise probably wouldn't go out and play
Right.
sports.
Right.
And we all know kind of what the health condition is
Uh,
in the country, and I think it's just phenomenal.
yeah. Yeah. I only see benefit, and it's very, I mean, the paddle and some of those balls are, $20. I mean, it's very easy to
Oh,
get
I get
in.
made fun of all the time. I have a $20 Amazon.
Yeah.
It came with two paddles, three balls, a
Yeah.
bag, and covers, and it was $19. And
You're
my
all
friends are
set.
like, "Yeah, but they have these great gold plated paddles," and I'm like, "I think mine still hits the ball. I'm good."
The it's hidden because it's at Costco. I see a whole pickleball set at Costco now where you can get the, 2 or 3 paddles and the backpack and everything, and, it's definitely hit mainstream.
Oh, it definitely. Well, it's mainstream when there's controversy
Yes.
over it, and if you watch it, like, and I think they're kind of making this up, but like the tennis versus pickleball, friction, but really you just get more eyeballs in all the sports, and even I'm playing pickleball now, and I'm like, pickleball is a more constrained version of tennis. Like you really
Sure.
don't have you can't do the grand strategies because you don't have the depth of play.
Right.
I hope nobody takes me out for saying that, um, but even I look at tennis, I'm like, you know what? I might be interested in trying tennis now that I see how fun this can be. I would never do 1v1 tennis though. I've done 1v1 on pickleball, and I look at the tennis players that do that. I'm like, wow, it
That's a lot.
is incredible that people can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and generally speaking, I find pickleball is a little more wrist, whereas tennis a little more elbow.
I can see that. I mean, you got to take a bigger, harder swing with the
Right.
tennis,
Bigger
and
racket.
yes,
Yeah.
and yeah, pickleball is just kind of more kind of picking at the ball, and just kind of watching enough videos, I've learned you just rush faster on pickleball. Like that's the strategy. Whereas in tennis, you have so many different strategies you can play. In pickleball, you really just want to rush, and whoever's got the longer arms is going to win.
Yeah, get up to that kitchen, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then the other big thing is, I'm in Western Florida, so there's a lot of clay courts. So in tennis, and that's really easy on the knees and on the body. And I do play a lot of doubles because, like you said, singles is hard. Uh, but pickleball is just one surface. But it's a great sport, and I encourage people to go out and try it.
Yeah, I waited forever, and I had that kit that I bought. It just sat in my closet for a year and a half, and finally I said, "I'm doing it."
Good for you.
And what's funny is everybody that I've conned into going to play with me has become a convert.
Just one event, just one time, and they're in.
Well, you know what it is? People, and again, can be gym bros or can just be stay at home people, but people, the human body wants to be active.
Yeah, it
And
does.
I think when you do something that's active, that's not like crushing, like something boring. Like I applaud runners, and I used to be a runner, but there's a day for a lot of people where you're just like, I don't enjoy this anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
But if they can find something that they enjoy, they want to do it.
that's right.
And you just have to find the right game for them to play.
Mm.
And that's why I think it's such a hit sport because it's so accessible and people want to get out of the house.
Yeah, and afterwards you feel so good and you sleep so well that night. And
Oh, you're like, Lude, look at me, man. I'm a
yeah,
pro athlete.
that's right. Your body rewards you, and plus when you see like Tom Brady and LeBron James investing in pickleball leagues and teams and et cetera, now it's just kind of gaining legitimacy.
And there's the side benefit, and this is specific to men. There is the side benefit to men that if you're married, you can do what I do, which is always go straight to your wife and give her a big hug
Oh,
when
that's
and
nice.
she is livid, and she's like, "Get off of me!" And you're sweaty, and you're like, "Oh,
Right?
I just want to give you a kiss, babe. It's been too long." And I feel like that's
It's
the
adorable.
classic husband thing to do after you go
Sure.
out and get
Sure.
sweaty.
Yeah.
And so there's so many benefits to it.
It does. Yeah, I just did that this morning, in fact. Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. So you started your business in college. Like me, you started as a developer.
Yeah, I was. This would definitely date me. I worked for some dot coms, um,
Yeah.
and my last job. Well, kind of wheeling back. I was in school, and then I had an IT job, and I put myself through college doing the restaurant thing, of course. Um, and then while I was in IT, I was also doing development. I wrote a couple of books. It was just kind of the time for that. I
Yeah.
did some public speaking, so I worked for .com. So everything just kind of started accelerating very quickly. And then my when my last .com that I was working for went out of business, we were doing streaming music in like 2001,
Hmm.
2002. So you can imagine how profitable that business was.
Yeah.
We did have claim fame. Our software was in all those Rio devices, if you remember those.
Rio. I do remember
Yeah,
Rio.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so we wrote a lot of the software for those kind of devices.
Huh.
But it went out of business. I was like 24, 25.
Those are the
And
Napster days,
yes,
Dustin?
this was in the Napster days.
Yeah.
And I remember because IBM had donated a bunch of equipment to us because it was so hot. People were just trying to get involved in it.
Right.
And anyways, I was like in my mid 20s, and then it went out of business, and I was like, I'm gonna start a company. Like, what's gonna happen? I'm gonna go broke. I'll just live with my mom. I'm still early 20s, not
Yeah.
attached. Um, and so, I started my it was a identity access management development company. It was very specialized. I only transitioned that to an MSP after about 10 years. Um, and it was actually my second company. My first company I had right after high school was software development, but it obviously nobody wants to pay a 19-year-old back
Right.
then to write software libraries. And so yeah, that's my history. And then I ran the IT company. I transitioned to MSP company. Um, I kept developing, and then that's where Giant Rocket Ship spun out of that.
So when you're 19, what are you writing in? What language?
I was a C
Oh, I'll
developer.
see.
I
Yeah.
I had learned C in high school, and then I started writing some. Back then, you would write libraries, and you would sell the compiled libraries,
Right.
and then they would just link it. And I did it, but I just didn't have enough traction now, so I didn't understand. Sales is 90%, 10% is development.
Hmm. This is kind of interesting. Those libraries are our equivalent of like what's the equivalent of that today?
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, today you would just a ton. Either you have your company has a bunch of internally developed libraries in their
yeah.
repo, or now you're just bringing in 5,000 billion trillion open source libraries,
Right.
and then building on top of that.
Mm. Hmm. All in C, and things haven't changed that much. They're still using they're using C sharp now, but there's still a decent amount of people using C.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't personally touched C in 15 years. I
Yeah.
mean, C is really relegated to a systems level
Right.
platform. That and then they have some like they have some replacement languages like Rust that they're trying to push for systems development, but you're not going to see developers doing C that much anymore. I mean,
Mm.
JavaScript's kind of the big one these days.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
everything's
JavaScript.
web. Yeah, Java and the yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you can use it on the server side now, and they're just trying to consolidate the amount of information they need to learn to develop.
Mm. So the .com goes bankrupt and you decide to start your company in your 20s. It's a great time to do it. You don't have a mortgage, you don't have kids. I mean, I did the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in an apartment, a little not great apartment. It was like $550. And it's funny, most decent sized cities have what they call a garden district area. And so it's in where I live, it's right next to LSU. I lived in this beautiful area, but I paid like nothing for this horrible apartment. And
Mm.
it had a spare room in it. And I just literally got a phone and put it on the wall. And that was my business line. And then I just kind of started adding customers, and I had the benefit of when I was an employee, a lot of consultants, when they would engage with me for the business I was working for, they would say, "Oh, you seem to know what you're doing. Would you like to do a side project?" So
Ah.
fortunately, I didn't have to start from zero. I had outside consultants feeding me work initially.
Mm. And then eventually that there's no consistency there. It's all projects, so there's no recurring revenue. So you had to move to a different model.
That's right. For the first 10 years of the IT company, I I would never touch Windows. That was the first thing.
Huh.
I was a Unix guy,
What year is
and
this? Give me the years.
I mean,
So,
we didn't really transition into a typical MSP, I guess, until like 2010, 2011.
so you wouldn't do
Um,
Windows in the late '90s, early 2000s.
no, I went to when I mean I started the company in 2002, so
Ah,
I didn't transition to a more typical MSP until like 2011.
I see.
Um, Up until then, my customers were state agencies, hospital systems. Like we would do big integrations, big deployments of user provisioning systems. It was just very difficult for me to reproduce myself.
Right.
And I would, g- I at some point I looked back to see how much Windows work I gave away, and it was like incredible. And
Right.
then finally, I said, you know what, I can't. I'm not sophisticated enough to really build a firm around this business model. And so I transitioned into the MSP business model. And then when I tried to hire people, I was like, oh, this is 1,000 times easier to
Mm.
hire a Windows engineer.
Yeah, scalability becomes an issue with the sole proprietorship, right?
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
suddenly I was able to take vacations. It was nice. But then again, you
Mm.
have the negative. Now you're working to pay for payroll.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. Now you have this, yeah, you have payroll. And I remember we had started the MSP and we bought another MSP and we were, I don't know, I think we had about 50 employees. We had a big picnic, Dustin.
Hmm.
And, they brought their wives and their kids and their grandkids. And I remember leaving that thinking, oh my God, this little thing that I started is affecting grandkids, is the impact of that. It's like I was stressed out for the next week. It's like, I better not mess this up. All of a sudden the reality of, really, keeping a payroll going really hits you.
Oh, it's a lot, and now that I've built giant rocket ship up where I have people depending on their salaries, I'm just right back into it, and
Mm,
everybody likes to look at entrepreneurs. I just say business owners usually better,
yeah.
but it's like this great job. I love the energy of it, but I'm like everybody else. Sometimes I wake up at night and I'm like, what am I doing? Um, like, this is stressful. I have a
It's
lot on my
lonely.
shoulders,
Yeah.
and that's what it is, right? You're volunteering, accepting a high risk endeavor,
Yeah, you sure are.
looking for a high payout at some time in the future.
I remember friends coming up to me and saying, "It must be so nice not having a boss." I said,
Bruh,
"Look, I
I
got
got 20
I
bosses.
got more bosses than I've ever had in my life. Are you kidding me?
You're
Every
like
one of my
pulling them out of your
clients."
pocket. You're like, I
Yeah.
got them here. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
No, what it's fun.
vendors, banks, distributors, everybody's my boss.
Well, yeah, it's funny. I used to in my previous business. I was involved in a CEO peer mentoring group (EO), and
Oh, yeah.
you could only enter that at a certain revenue level, and you had to be the primary owner, decision maker. And what I found was fascinating was once you become an owner. Now, definitely, I have non-business owner friends, but most of my friends now own a company, and a lot of it is they don't understand that you're not driving a Lambo all the time.
Right. Right.
And they just make assumptions about you. And it's not bad. You can have a positive stereotype that's not necessarily a good thing, but that you don't have the same problems, but you're really buying into bigger problems and higher risk when you own a company. Now look, there's some great positives to it. Let's not downplay that, but yeah, just the conversation can really change when you own a company because your risk profile it changes, but it's still there. And I would argue
Mm,
it's bigger than if you were not an owner.
mm. When I entered the peer groups, that changed everything for me. Now I have a tribe. These people have similar, troubles than I do. Was that EO for you?
That was definitely EO. What peer group were you in? Can you share?
HTG. So I was in the
Yeah, yeah,
MSP
yeah,
one.
yeah.
That
I'm super
became
familiar.
Evolve. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and we did HGT a little bit, but that was like late in that. I had been in EO for a long time, and yeah, absolutely. In EO, it's similar to HGG. It's a little bit more strict,
Right.
right? You have to have a pretty high revenue to be in EO, and also you do agree to confidentiality. If you break that in your forum, you're out globally. Like you're out.
Wow.
And I would always joke that in your forum, you knew if somebody was going to go bankrupt before the bank or if they're going to get divorced before the spouse,
Wow.
because you would just have you had the dirt on everybody, so you were able to share things that you couldn't comfortably share with other people.
Mm,
And yeah, absolutely, it got me through some very trying times in my life. Just as I adjust, I'm married, I have kids, I have businesses, I have debt, I have growth, I have late nights, and you really just need a tribe to help you walk through that turmoil.
you really do. So
I
now
didn't
you
know
enter.
this was a therapy session.
It feels good. So now you enter the world of recurring revenue. So you can actually, depend on some revenue. Tell me what that transition was like.
In the IT company, yeah, that was nice. I had started to learn kind of late in the game when I let's say we had Model A, which was identity access management and kind of sophisticated platform management for larger companies. I had learned that the feast or famine model just wasn't for me.
Hmm.
Um, you would kill it, make a ton of profit, but then you would be scrambling for 2, 3 months for a big project.
Hmm.
And yeah, you might have money in the bank, but you would be watching it dwindle.
Hmm.
And the other thing about, and so you get the benefit of a more stable income. But the other thing that's really bad about feast or famine versus the recurring revenue is you can't trend out your hiring,
Hmm.
right? Like you may have a great person on staff, and then if you lose your projects, and you see this in the news all the time when there's a mass layoff, somebody loses a contract, and all of a sudden there's 1,000 people without work. Is without stable revenue, you lose so many good people that you want to retain. And stable recurring revenue lets you build up not just a customer base, but a base, an employee base that you can that helps you row the boat. That feast or famine just it's not
Interesting.
conducive for that.
Hmm. Yeah, because the highs and lows of project work is just
You're forced to let go of high value talent because you
right
can't pay them.
because you can't pay them. Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas the recurring model gives you some consistency.
Yeah, you can project things out, right? Now, it doesn't mean that a customer's not going to just not be able to pay or they're going to go bankrupt. But you can at least plot out on a graph, hey, this is my cost and this is my revenue. If you're smart, you're going to say this, you know, band is my profit that I'll maintain at all times. And you can just say, hey, guess what? In 6 months, I'm going to need to hire somebody.
Mm,
And that's a big
forecasting.
deal.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And of course, this is the main attractor or one of the main attractors for private equity. What has private equity done to the MSP industry?
I haven't been in the PE game. Like I don't know as much, but we're kind of gearing up with Rocket Ship to do a round in Q4. It
Oh,
won't obviously be PE because PE is a different ball game. But I do know when you look at an angel fund or even a venture capitalist fund, a VC fund, they're really looking for future growth. And a PE really is looking to maximize either the resale of the product of the company, or they want to maximize the short-term profitability being returned to their investors. And so it's just a very, very different context. I think, I'm probably swimming against the current here. I think PE can be good and that it forces companies to tighten up and realize that profit, there's that saying which is revenue is for vanity, profit is for sanity, cash is
hmm,
king. I love
hmm,
that saying. And you see all these companies that get big, and it's really for
hmm,
vanity, right? Because I can tomorrow I could go create $1 million business by opening a car lot. Right. I just need to sell 30 cars and I have $1 million business. Doesn't mean I'm making money, but like
hmm,
that's hubris if you think that's a big deal. Like anybody can go do that within a few months if you have something that's got a high dollar and some churn on it. But it doesn't mean you're making money. It doesn't mean you're not living in a basement with your mom somewhere. Um, and I think PE is good about refocusing people on profitability and the importance of cost control. I think the negative of PE is that it forces a short term view that profit is everything
hmm.
and that building revenue smartly and scaling out is still important. But if you're taking profit, you can't be maximizing profit and growth at the same time. The two
Hmm.
are exclusionary. And so I think that's where PE can have a negative, which is it forces you to take your eyeballs off of growth and scaling properly and more toward profitability. I may have just talked myself in a circle, but that's essentially where I'm at on it.
Yeah, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king. Last IT Nation in November, I talked to a lot of MSPs and I heard them use phrases and words that I've never heard before. And I believe it's a direct influence of private equity, things like tool consolidation and
Yes.
and just bottom line. That's my multiplier. I'm a bottom line guy, and I think it's a good trend. I mean, I would say, tell me if you agree, Dustin, most MSPs are overtooled.
I would agree, and I'm a tool vendor.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I tell people when we're doing a sales demo for Giant Rocket Ship is, hey, look, maybe we're not a good fit. Maybe we're not a good fit today. Um, maybe you need to get your house in order. Like if any
Mm,
of those things is true, just say so, and we're fine. Like you're not going to hurt my feelings. I think um, when I had my IT company, we were way overtooled. And the thing is, there's tools out there and they do fabulous things. Dashboard tools being one example. Like there's so many tools that just reproduce a dashboard. It's like,
mm,
how many ways do I need to see this data? And the thing is, they're very pretty and very addictive. They're almost social media like, and then they get you addicted to the prettiness of them. But if they're not motivating activities,
right.
what is their purpose? Like,
Right.
why do you need? And that's one thing that I learned is over time we had an incentive model that really worked well for the help desk. It was a weekly bonus paid out monthly, and we kept stripping it down the KPIs needed to hit that number until we had the bare minimum KPIs needed that we could all trust, and the resulting activity was a bonus payout.
Hmm.
Because otherwise, what was the value of the KPIs,
Hmm.
right? And so I think we can overtool on how we look at data, how we produce data, how we regurgitate data. Absolutely.
Hmm. So you're running the MSP, you've got recurring value now, and since your background is development, you start seeing a need internally and start creating a solution to use internally.
Yeah, I mean, we had a bunch of automations in my IT company. I was a developer. I couldn't kick the
Right.
habit,
Yeah, me
right?
too.
I kept putting anti-developer patches on my arm, but I could just never shake the bad habit of being a developer. And so we did a lot of stuff using no code. I had a bunch of scripts here and there, and you know, this is the one that I was sitting and so for the viewers that don't know, Rocket Ship, we fully automate ticket assignment, dispatch, and scheduling. Right. So we're like a fully automated coordinator that works with your service manager. And, we were kind of going through a little bit of a rough patch with our dispatcher. And she went on vacation and I was like, well, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be dispatching for the next week. And so there's got to be a way to figure out how we're going to do this. And so I wrote some really ugly code and it was only capable of doing that first initial dispatch to the correct person. But then I was like, I was like, this really frees up the team to kind of move faster. There's no dead time on the tickets. And so yeah, absolutely. Just doing that recurring automation. Finally, that there was that one piece of automation that was kind of mind blowing for me. And that's what I spun out as Giant Rocket Ship.
And when you're developing that code, Dustin, is it just a bunch of conditions, an if condition, if this? I mean, how are you enabling it to make decisions about where tickets should go?
Well, at first it was just really dumb, right? It
Mm.
would just you can line it up with tickets that have these tags tend to require X these skill sets. Who's got those skill sets? Assign
Uh,
it. And so at first it was just really ugly and slow. Like it would take 40 seconds for the ticket to get updated, right?
wow.
And as obviously as we progress, now it takes into consideration who's on vacation,
Mm,
who's a veteran versus a junior skill
mm,
set, who can get to it before another person in the same team. Like it computes a million things now. But yeah, at first it was just dumbly assigning. I mean, it would overload somebody, right? It would just say, "Oh, Joe is really good at
Huh.
doing webcasts. I'll give him all the webcast work. Good luck." Yeah.
Lots of conditions there that need to be addressed. So you're working on this solution, and now you mentioned giant rocket ship. So the MSP, you're still winding down, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the MSP still exists. Fortunately, I have a good team. Um, and so I'm not really as involved. I do a weekly meeting with the service manager, but otherwise, I'm not really needed anymore.
Hmm.
But I do go look at the rocket ship dashboard of seeing who's doing what every once in a while.
Huh.
Basically, I just like having access to a company to see like what's Rocket Ship doing right now. Because obviously I can't do that with our customer base. So I look at it, but mostly I'm just kind of looking at how is Rocket Ship performing, how is the team using it. Because not surprisingly, my old MSP gets a free license for it.
They're
And
lucky.
so yes, but they also get the first release of anything,
Right.
so
Right.
maybe not so lucky.
And so you've created the solution. You're in the ConnectWise PitchIT program, and it's a full. Talk to me more about the solution. It's actually taking the place. You want a dispatcher to be moved to more of a manager, correct?
So let's take a step back and let's talk business, Joe. So
Yes.
think of a manager in any company, and we know what we want them to do, but I'm gonna tell you what they actually do. They
Mm,
spend the entire day juggling people and work and time.
yeah.
That's what they managers ultimately spend their
Hmm.
time doing. If you think of your service manager, they're spending all their time juggling tickets, technicians, and time. So Rocket Ship uses AI and it ensures work gets to the right people. People do the right work and they do it at the right time.
Mm.
And so Rocket Ship almost instantly identifies the best person for a ticket, puts it on their board, ranks it in the correct order based on SLA and priority. And throughout the day, it's constantly retabulating what the order of the work should be, how long it should take, and
Hmm.
whether or not the technician's taking too long and what to do if that happens.
Now you mentioned AI. How is it using AI?
So the majority, it's interesting kind of history there. We use AI for categorization. A lot of tagging happens in AI. We don't
Mm.
do any text generation. We don't need any of that. Um, the AI gives us a little bit of predictions. For example, Rocket Ship will determine if you will violate the SLA in the future on a ticket, even if it's not currently violated, and it
Wow.
will warn you about that. And so some of that kind of stuff's AI driven. We used to use the AI more in the assignment process, and we rolled that back and we really moved to more of a rules based engine.
Hmm.
And the reason was people don't like that. So when you're using AI to direct the flow of work for a human being, the AI might have the best outcome that should happen, right? Hey, look, this is what I think needs to happen, and this is the output of that. The problem is it's not always predictable by the human. People do not like seeing what they perceive as randomness on their checklist of things to do for the day. It may be the perfect thing they should do for the day, but
Hmm.
it's not relevant. We like to say we're a mixed intelligence company.
Hmm.
We do use AI, but our AI is there just to elevate the humans in your MSP. And
Hmm.
that's why we're a mixed intelligence company. And so, really, some areas of AI are not really good when there's people involved because people want to feel like they have some control or they can predict what's going to happen, even if it maybe is 5% less efficient. And so, we have kind of rolled back a little bit of the AI on the assignment just so that people could better predict what would happen if they were to have done it themselves.
Hmm. Dustin, I never heard the term mixed intelligence.
I'm
That's
totally
very
stealing
interesting.
it. I had a great a conversation with this guy at a chamber event here in Baton Rouge, and he was talking about how they're using AI to do like optimize ticket sales for music venues. And he was like, "Yeah, we're trying to do this mixed intelligence." And I said, "Well, what is that?" He said, "Yeah, I think it's where you mix AI and people. You're not
Hmm.
replacing the people, you're just elevating them."
Hmm.
And I was like, I told him, I said, "I'm stealing it." I said, I'm stealing that. And he said, no. I said, yes. And so I use it, but I'm going to attribute it to that guy. And I'm sure it's been used elsewhere. But I like to think of AI in many ways, elevating people to do what they love, right? And getting them out of the jobs that are just clerical and drive them crazy. High
It's
value work. You need humans for the high value
You
work.
really do. Yeah, I think I like it. I'm gonna steal it, so I'm gonna steal it from a
No,
stealer.
you're not allowed to steal it.
I'm gonna use a different word than mix. I'm gonna use come with another one, but scrambled. But so ticket comes in. There's an issue, whether it's automated or not. Whether one of your systems finds low disk space or a user says there's a problem, ticket comes in through the system. Let's say it's ConnectWise right now. So your giant rocket ship engine takes over and gets that ticket and assigns it to an engineer. And now the
Yes.
engineer's been assigned the ticket, they're notified. And if they don't work on it right away, what happens?
We don't notify them that they've been assigned the ticket. What
Ah,
we do is we also so there's three components to the product. It's called Smart Dispatch. This aligns technicians with work. Smart Work Queue, this aligns technicians with the priority of their work. And
ah,
Smart Meetings, which aligns phone calls and on sites with the flow of the rest of the product. Because
huh.
phone calls and on sites are very interruptive, and you can have a low priority on site that's taken precedence over a high value ticket. And so we embed
Hmm.
that into the product because you really need everything working together for an efficient flow. What happens is a ticket comes in, rocket ship looks at the tags against the ticket, identifies the best team, the most junior team possible to work that because it wants to help you with your cost control. It's going to evaluate everybody on the team, and it runs a competition who can get to it faster than anybody else on that team. Then it gives it to that person. That's Smart Dispatch. Smart Work Queue is a custom board that works inside of the PSA, and it feeds the work to the technician in the correct order that you want as a service manager your technician's working in.
Hmm.
So instead of them going to a board or a queue and determining what they want to work next that's been assigned to them. And the thing about technicians is we know this to be true. They will always pick a fast, easy ticket or a fun ticket. No technician volunteers for a difficult, boring ticket.
Right.
But the difficult, boring ticket's the one that gets you fired,
Hmm.
right? As an MSP. So Rocket Ship takes that out of the equation, which is it's
Interesting.
a false decision point to begin with, and then it feeds the work in the correct orders to the technician. It tracks what they're working on. It has a HUD or a display for the dispatcher or the service manager, so they can just visually see if something's going off the rails. But your technician's not being alerted to interrupt every time they get a ticket. If a critical ticket comes in, it just goes at the top of their board to be worked.
Hmm.
So we take away the need to have a decision point that the technician should have never had to begin with, which
Hmm.
is I'm going to choose what work to do next. That is not for the technician. The technician excels at saying, how do I resolve this problem? And so we're going to elevate them so they can make the correct decisions. And then we elevate your service manager so they only have to focus on the edge cases and not the bulk detail work. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sounds like mixed intelligence.
Sounds like mixed intelligence, man. I'm bought in. But
It really does.
yeah, it does that, and it does the initial dispatch, but it also removes another decision point and another training point, which is if tier one can't solve the problem, what happens? Right
Hmm.
now, you got to bring in the service manager, bring in another technician, figure out who's going to work it. So Rocket Ship will take the ticket and escalate it to the next tier, doing the same kind of algorithm of figuring out the best resource. There's no dead time for the ticket to wait where it needs to go. It instantly goes to the next one, and then we build reports that tell the service manager, here's why your team has to escalate tickets. Solve that problem, and your tier one will quit escalating tickets.
Hmm.
So we solve a lot of points there.
How can Rocket Ship determine if it needs to be a caller on site?
You can just tell it. Like we
Ah.
do a lot of auto scheduling stuff, but there's a widget that says, "Hey, I want to do a phone call or on site." And then it looks at your how busy you are, your part of your tickets, and it gives you a recommendation. Hey, I think you need to do this on site tomorrow at 12 o'clock.
Hmm.
Put in the travel time, we'll block you out, send the invites out, and then it will work all of your tickets around those on sites without your service manager having to worry about it.
Wow. And how about when the engineer technician updates the ticket, what happens at that point? Let's say they just put in some notes, but they're still working on it. I mean, what's the role of rocket ship at that point?
That's a great question. The role of rocket ship there is to remove yet another decision point from the technician, right?
Hmm.
So one of the major reasons that tickets go out of SLA is that we let technicians make decisions, and in this situation, a lot of technicians will not make a decision that will hurt the MSP and the customer. So if you think of an IT company, there's a very common scenario where a ticket comes in, the technician works it, and now they're unclear what to do next. They're
Hmm.
not 100% sure it should be closed. Maybe they're not 100% sure what their next step is. So they're thinking, I'm just going to call my manager later and worry about it. And that ticket goes somewhere to die because
Hmm.
now it's just going to sit there because the technician's dithering. They're just not sure what to do with the ticket. Rocket Ship doesn't want you to do that. It's going to collapse the decisions to four options, right? Close a ticket, set it waiting, waiting customer, waiting vendor. Um, Escalate the ticket or schedule more time for it. In other words,
Hmm.
hand it back to Rocket Ship to put back on your board in the future. And what we want to do is we want to take away all the other options that the technician thinks they have, including option five, the common one, which is do nothing, come back to it later,
Hmm.
where it just sits and dies.
Now we had it where the technician completes a ticket, but it was the service manager that actually gets to close it because oftentimes it's not really completed. They have to they send out a survey, they get customer satisfaction on the ticket, etc. What's the role of rocket ship then? Once
We don't
the
have we're not involved in that role.
I see.
And so what we decided early on is we do not want to be help desk software. We want
Hmm.
to make your help desk software better. And so if you want to enter time on the ticket, you want to add a note to the ticket or you want to close the ticket, then don't change your training. Keep doing the same thing. Let the PSA do the thing that the PSA is
Right.
good for.
Right.
What all PSAs, and this is not so that ConnectWise or Halo or Autotest people don't feel bad, there's no help desk platform out there that fully automates the flow of tickets
Hmm.
through the help desk. Like they all suck at it. And so we just focus on that one thing. Where does the ticket need to be and when does it need to be there?
Hmm.
Who needs to be working it? You guys worry about the rest.
What's the future for rocket ship?
Well, that's a great question. So if I look at long term vision, our beachhead is the IT service industry. I know it well.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, once we really get a lockdown on the MSP market, we're going to expand into large help desk and service desk at
Hmm.
larger companies, right? We really play well. To get the most value from us, you need at least several techs, 10 techs to really get
Right.
value from us. If
Right.
you have one or two techs, you can do hallway conversations, right?
Right.
Um, but then the next step out of the MSP market would be large, like a hospital help desk, and then from there, we really can start plugging into project management, other service management tools, because we don't want to solve this problem for everybody, but there's some clear industries where they need to route work and they really want to route it to the right people, but they have to hire people to figure out the people to route the work to. It's like this big
Hmm.
circle, and those are markets where we can really have some positive value.
And what do you want to get out of Pitch It? What do you want to get out of ConnectWise Pitch It?
Well, I'm a very big peer guy. I like being around other people that are doing what I'm doing. I like the competition of it. If you looked at my LinkedIn post when I post other people's interviews and pitch it, I'll make a joke about how they're a competitor, how they're evil or something.
Yeah.
I do better in competitive situations than if I do when I'm just competing with myself.
Hmm.
Like if I'm at the gym, I can't do a garage gym. I got to go to a big gym just so that there's people bigger than me. And so the first thing I get out of it is there's people smarter and bigger than me in pitch it, and I we will do better because of it. The other thing is obviously I'm here for the free promo, bro. I mean, you can't hey, they've ConnectWise has done such an incredible job putting this program together, and it's just like a feel good thing that they do. Like I don't think people really understand the amount of resources that they put into pitch it, and
Yeah.
we don't have to pay anything for it. They're really just
Right.
bending over backwards to help the marketplace. And so just being involved in that experience and learning from people and the people they put in front of us to train, like the right behavior for a SaaS vendor. So a lot of it is just the free training is phenomenal, being put with guys like you, and just having that great competition out there. Those are all the wins for me in Pitch It.
It's really cool incubator. I don't know why other companies aren't doing it, but they just do a really, really good job at that. So Dustin, when I started I'm just a little bit older than you. I started my MSP in the 90s.
You're 25?
At 26.
Yeah. You look a solid 26.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I've got mixed intelligence, but anyway, so I started my MSP in the 90s, and it wasn't an MSP then. I was doing project work like yourself. I was doing development and doing little network support. Eventually turned into that, but I was not paying attention to my well-being. Pickleball did not come out, and I
Right.
was not playing my regular sports, and I was eating and drinking way too, soda. I got myself up to 340 pounds, so the doctor said to me, if I don't lose the weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. So my oldest was just born. So I spent the next 6-7 months, lost 130 pounds, kept it off. You can't look at it as like a finishing line. You got to keep it off. It's a big change in behavior, similar to what you're talking about with help desk. You've got to change your behavior in order to really to scale. So people always ask me, what was your secret? We talked about pickleball, and people need to exercise and get more, lose weight, get in better shape. But my one word answer, Dustin, is always discipline. That's how I lost it. I got focus. I developed the
Yes.
routine. I willpower. I've got a reason why. My daughter, discipline is the one word answer why, how I lost weight and kept it off. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life, Dustin.
Yeah, that's huge. I still go to the gym. I had hurt my back the other year, but I will tell you, I've always been a gym guy, and so I used to spend an incredible amount of time in the gym, just kind of relating to what you're saying. And there's this, I forget what coach said this in his own posters, but I saw it at the gym. I just thought it was so good, which is hard work beats talent that doesn't work hard.
Mm.
And that's the thing, right? Like, inspiration doesn't last, right? The energy of pushing an idea forward, it doesn't last. It comes and goes, right? And it comes and goes as your cash flow goes up and down. It comes and goes as um maybe your kid's moving out for college and you're going through something. I'm about to go through that myself. I'm already dreading that moment. um but there's the discipline of having, however you frame that discipline. For me in Notion, I just have a weekly checklist, like how many times am I going to post on LinkedIn? How many times am I going to comment on LinkedIn? How many phone calls am I going to make for sales that week?
Mm.
And these huge ideas that I have with my customers are great, but it doesn't mean anything if I'm screaming into the void, right? So
Right.
those sales calls are huge, even if it's just 5 a day. I think that type of discipline that's achievable, I think that's what makes or breaks people in their careers and companies. So I would say discipline is integral to how I live my business life. On my personal life, my wife complains that you always come up with ideas last second. Can you give us a little warning? So that's a whole different ball game.
Sure. You're impulsive, is what she's saying.
Yeah, well, and my oldest son, my youngest son is just like me. He loves it, but they're both like, my oldest son is like, Dad, can you just give me like an hour of warning before we're going somewhere? I'm like, dude, I just was thinking we need to go library to go look at this. There's an event there, and that's no impulse control. But in my business life, I've been burned enough to know that impulses are almost always a bad thing,
Mm.
and that you really just need a steady as she goes philosophy, because you can outlast the most incredible competitor if you just do the same like good work every single day. Then your marathon's going to beat their sprint
Mm.
every day of the week. It just might take a while.
So yeah, kind of diligence, routine. Yeah, it's
Mixed intelligence, just
mixed
all in
intelligence.
a big ball of success. A little mixed intelligence soup, as they say.
They do say that, or maybe gumbo, maybe
Gumbo, yes,
to bring it
gumbo.
home. Yes. What motivates you, Dustin?
this is always the most difficult question. I am extremely family and kid oriented. Um, I do like that being a business owner gives you some freedom, time freedom that you wouldn't
Yes.
have otherwise.
Yes.
Um, I do work an extreme amount.
Yeah.
Definitely work more than I probably work probably 50 to 60 hours a week. But a lot of that is hidden from the kids,
Right.
right? Um, the reality is I don't know what motivates me. I think that people,
Mm.
particularly if you're a serial entrepreneur, I think a lot of they come up with different reasons why they're motivated. I don't think people that keep creating new companies really know why they do what they do.
Mm.
I think it's one of those things where I just am I supposed to be doing something else? Like
Mm.
I it's something that I enjoy, and it's funny. My youngest son, sometimes I'll be coding a little project unrelated to rocket ship, like I'm playing around with Golang or something else. And my youngest will sometimes ask me, he's like, "Well, why are you doing that? Why don't you want to go play like a game or something like that?" I'm like, "Well, I'm having fun. Like I enjoy figuring this out and doing a deep dive into some documentation to figure out how to build this using this framework or whatever. And I just enjoy it. It's like I would do this as not always, but I would mostly do this as a hobby if I didn't get paid for it. What a great world where I can actually get paid for doing what I enjoy.
Mm.
So I guess sometimes you would say motivation. Sometimes I think it's just mental wiring where it's what you enjoy. So it's like, why do you go hiking? And people will give you lies like, well, it's for health benefits. No, people don't hike because it makes them healthy. They hike because they love the view,
Right.
right? And for me, and I would say a lot of serial entrepreneurs, they just love creating companies and solving
Mm.
problems.
Mm.
And that's that is the motivation, just the act itself.
Yeah, just building things from scratch.
Yeah, I mean, how incredible when you can just build something. I've been working on rocket ship for not even 2 years yet. We have a large list of customers. I'm being told I'm supposed to say logos. We have a lot of logos under the company, and I've built something. It's a going concern. It pays for itself, and I mean, how incredible! Like you if you really put your mind to it and you have a strong network around you, which is what people miss, that can have a huge impact on you being successful and enjoying what you're doing. And so yes.
It's interesting, Dustin. I like to cook, and it's not until recently where I've really figured out why. And I believe it's related to what you're talking about. I can walk into my kitchen and it's clean, and
Hmm.
then I start taking ingredients out, and I start cooking, and I start eating and serving everybody, and then I clean as you go. And then when we're done, it's all clean and put away. So I get to see that project from beginning to end. So much of what I do is I project manage, I delegate this off, delegate that off. Whereas cooking, I get to be part of it from beginning to end. And it's such a great feeling of completion.
Hmm.
Perhaps that's similar.
I think it's very similar. And what's funny is I get what you're saying. I don't agree that cooking is fun like that, and I think that's why people sometimes struggle to understand the pain of building a company,
Mm.
which is, and you've built a company so you can empathize. But I like to eat the results of cooking. I
Hmm.
I find no joy in the cooking
In
experience. My
preparing it.
wife will spend 2 hours cooking,
I
and then
love
she'll
it.
eat in 2 seconds and be so happy about it. She
Yeah.
just enjoyed the experience, and I think it's the same thing in that you're doing an activity that you enjoy. If you got paid for it, that'd be even better.
Hmm.
But you do it as a hobby anyway, and it just brings you pleasure. The act of it, like you don't have a long term. Like, am I trying to change the universe with giant rocket ship? No, I'm trying to make service management better. I want to
Hmm.
bring service excellence to the world. But a lot of it is I just really enjoy meeting with customers, talking about what we can do better. Like it's
That's
a fun
great.
experience for me. So I think relating it to the cooking experience, it's similar in that way.
Hmm.
But not everybody's going to get it because I don't enjoy cooking.
Right. Yeah. Just the from nothing to something back to where it was. So, given your motivation, Dustin, how do you measure success?
Um, Yeah, so there's many angles to that. Maybe I should have been better prepared for these types of questions. But to me, especially having been in a peer group, if you've been in HCG or EO, you understand that these are very like existential meta questions. And just to do a quick aside, I'm burning time on your webcast. Sorry about that. But
Not at all.
um, in my previous company, one of the questions was like, "What's your goal?" And I would always put in my forum my revenue goal and how much
Mm,
my profit would be. And they would be like, but why that number? And I was like, it's a big number. Okay, but why that number? Like, what's your goal here? And finally, I realized, you know what most people want? They want enough profit so that if they're working because they enjoy it, not because they have to pay their bills.
mm,
Right. And I started understanding that some of these questions really are trying to get to the core of what's the anxiety or fear or happiness that you're trying to resolve or work toward. For me, my goal is just being valuable. I'm very respect oriented. It's important for me. And my goal is, I want people to perceive me as having done something beneficial for the
mm,
community. Like, oh, this made it like one of the things I like about Rocket Ship, and we have some reviews out there, and they just say it just changed how we work. Like it's changed the workflow.
mm,
And in one of our on our sales deck, one of our items is teams are just happier because people are working tickets that they want to work. So one of my goals is, people just feel like they're happier at their jobs because they're not doing stuff they don't want to be doing,
mm,
right? And now obviously that's just one of the goals. Obviously financial is another goal. As we do these stepping stones, we're taking big risk. We're looking for high rewards because those financial rewards let me focus on, in 10 years when I move on to something else, like what would that fun thing be? And then the last goal is, again, I thrive in environments where people are around me. And part of my goal is just really like our board of advisors. Everybody on the board of advisors has done an exit. They're all super smart. Like just being around people, like running a company like this lets you talk to people that are just smart, like
mm.
just straight up raw intelligence, like they're at the top of their game. And those people will take my phone call now for the rest of their lives, hopefully, right? Unless I say something crazy like mixed intelligence on this webcast. But um, man, just meeting cool people and being invited to the coolest parties. That's
Yeah.
another goal.
Yeah, there's never a wrong answer there, and it's a
It's a
sliding scale.
complex answer.
Yeah.
And I would say anybody that has just a single one word response, like I I would judge them heavily.
Right.
Yes.
But words like impact and freedom and security, these are similar ways to describe your success, it would seem from what you just said.
Yeah, I would say that you can kind of collapse each of those concepts into
Yeah.
those words, but impact on what? Right? That's always the question. Like
Mm,
all of these words, like they need context around them
I sure do.
um to really have more meaning or be more relatable.
Dustin, thanks so much for your time today, man. I was excited when we set this up. I just love I love creating solutions like that help businesses, and I could see you do as well. So you had this need for yourself, you solved it yourself, and now you're giving it to others. It's the trait of a remarkable person, if you ask me. So if anybody listening, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, Dustin at giantrocketship.com. If you want to know the history of the company name, first I just think it's a cool company name. I was
It is.
walking around one day and I was like, Giant Rocket Ship. And then it had a free domain. I was like, how is nobody taking this domain
Right.
name? And I have a somewhat complicated last name to spell. And I learned in my last company, don't have a complicated domain name. So now it's obvious, Dustin at giantrocketship.com.
GiantRocketShip.com. You're on Facebook, you're on X, you're LinkedIn, you got a YouTube channel, you're a Mastodon as well. And of
Man,
course,
yeah, you did some good research there.
and plus, personally, you're on LinkedIn. It's Dustin Puryear.
Yeah, that was
Dustin,
my company name. That's why it was so hard to spell it.
yeah. Yeah, this podcast, I don't use my real name because Pins is much easier to remember than Panone. So,
Oh, for
and it
sure.
was available. Yeah. Dustin, thanks so much for your time. I look forward to seeing you next time at an event and maybe we'll have, a beverage or two.
Will you be at CompTIA?
I will be in 2 weeks. Yes, I will.
All right, so you just offered to buy me a beer. Noted.
Absolutely. You be well, Dustin. Thanks so much.
Okay, have a good one.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.